All right, you good?
What's going on, guys? My name is Jacob Wagler. Today, we are doing a hockey shoot at the Allman Arena in Stratford, Ontario, home of Justin Bieber. So the objective for the shoot and the types of shots that we're looking to get is mainly going to be more cinematic style. Something that I've noticed from a lot of photographers that do this professionally for like sports teams or even equipment teams like Bauer, CCM, Warrior, all these different companies, their shots seem very standard. So the objective for today is basically to try and get some good action shots, to try and get some good portraits with all the thought of cinematic. So let's get into the video. So I'm always starting off my shoot by sharing my vision with my athlete. I find that this helps because it gives them an idea of what your vision is and how they can help you achieve it. So I wanted to try starting off my shoot with this one light setup, and I had Aaron stand there so that I could get an idea for what the lighting looks like. The first look I was going for was to have him stop leaning really low to the ice.
Pretty much be like right where you stop. Perfect. Just like a hard.
I'll try and lean. You want me doing the lean there on that one?
As much as you can.
Okay.
Yeah, as much as you can.
Yep. I'll do that.
Okay, 3, 2,
One of the problems on skates that I was having is getting those really low angles, but still staying upright.
When you stop, is it possible to look this way?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like
so, yes.
Yep.
Now try and stop here as much as you can. Okay. Like on, like in like this area right here. Okay. As much as you possibly can. Yeah, that's sick. It's looking good though.
So there's two things that I'll do when I'm giving feedback. So the first is to be hyper specific. So I was telling him to look to his right as if he was receiving a pass. And then the second, give positive feedback. So I said, this is looking great, but we just got a few things we got to work on. Now, to bring my subject more into the photography experience, I love to show them what's going on behind the camera. This helps to not only build trust, but also build confidence.
Dude, that's sick.
That's sweet.
Let's do the same thing. I'm gonna light up another light just from the other direction here.
Now, I brought in a second light because Aaron was wearing black, so he was really fading into the background, so I wanted to make him pop even more.
Like you're receiving a pass. Okay. Yeah. Let's just do one more and try and lean as much as you can. As much as you can. I'm just gonna do a bit of a funky angle on this one. How sick. All right, 1, 2, 3. Nice.
Yeah, that's sick.
All right, let's set up for maybe some clappers here, and we'll try and we'll try and see what we can do.
So I took off the modifier because I wanted the lighting to be really harsh. And what that would do is create more pop and emphasis to the snow when he's shooting through the snow.
Would be you come right through and just lean in as though you were full slapper. Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
All right, you good?
I'm good. Dude. Holy smokes. That's insane.
Now, with there being water droplets on the front of the lens, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to get some really cool lighting. So I shifted the lighting, positioned it right in behind him so that we could get this really sweet flare. And remember, we've got this big soft light off to the left, so we're also hitting him from the front as well as behind.
Do you want to look to your right there? A little bit toward me.
With Aaron being so tall on skates, I really had to bring the camera up. My objective was to just get those more personal, relatable shots, so I went to shooting more at eye level. And then for those really powerful, dominant looking photos, I went for a low angle.
Did this ruin your day? How about now? How about now?
So to get some more action shots, I had Aaron come down and take some shots on net.
Did it break? No way.
That's the first time I've ever seen that.
I have never seen that in my life.
And to get some more dynamic movement, I had him come down and pretend like he was deking out a goalie or faking out a play.
Kind of in the zone where you're looking for a pass, but you're just you can even skate up and kind of swerve around me if you want.
Because we didn't have a lot of time left, I wanted to jump into doing more portrait shots. So I had a double light set up. The one on the left was a little bit behind his shoulder, and then the one on the right was a little bit in front of his shoulder. I just wanted to interrupt the video quick to say that if you are looking to level up your portfolio and want to land more clients in the action sports photography space, then I want to invite you to check out my Master Action Photography Bootcamp. This is a 4-hour live training where I'm showing you how to level up your portfolio with some of the key tricks and tactics that I've used, as well as how to connect with your ideal clients so you can start taking photos around the things that you're passionate about while still getting paid. If that sounds interesting to you, I've got more details below. All right, let's get back to the video.
Standing and like stick kind of at the side, one skate kind of on the heel. Yep. And then looking off this way.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
And you want to take your helmet off just quick? And we'll just hold it just in your hand, however you'd hold it naturally. Yeah, exactly.
Now, if this was for a brand like CCM, I wanted to show that I could capture detail like within the gloves. So my objective here was to have Aaron come down, take a shot, and have the light directly in behind him. And unfortunately, we ran out of time and they had to turn the lights back on, so I had Aaron do this one last skate. And my goal was to have him stop right in front of me and get that nice spray of snow.
Nice.
Now, to finish off that storytelling aspect, I got him up in the stands, and to make it feel more personable, I had him up there taping a stick. Moments like these are great because it helps us to end our story while keeping the moments feeling real and relatable. Okay, so like I said at the start of the video, my objective was to create a cinematic look. And now there's a couple different ways that I went about this process. So there was one where I created this completely different look and this completely different vibe, which was kind of muted, kind of like more true black, but I threw in like a little bit of hint of blue, a little bit of like magenta, and I'll show you exactly how I'm breaking down that look, how I created that look. But then I also created this second look, which was more just basic, which was like removing every color except for like the skin tones, except for the gloves, like that pop of yellow. And so I want to break this down, show you exactly how I created this look, just to give you an idea of how I went through the process of thinking about this. There's a few things that I learned even from this project, and so I just want to share those things with you. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is the final result that we're going to be going for. So we're going to be going for something like this. Then we're going to be going for something like this. So this is like getting rid of all the color, just adding like a slight hue in those shadows, and then basically leaving the skin tones. We could even raise up some of those skin tones. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this. Now I've got all my lighting dialed in. I have my tone curve, which like is just in the lighting. It's creating like this really nice slight S curve where like I brought down the highlights, like this top point on the tone curve, and then I brought up this last tail on the tone curve, which is the shadow mark here. So that's going to give us like a lot of contrast. So if I turn this off and then I turn that on, that gives us some really nice contrast, but it's super subtle. And we've also got our color mixer tab also dialed in here. So we've got our skin tones pushing a little bit more orange. We've got our oranges pushing a little bit more red. And then we've got our yellows, which is like our gloves here. Those are also like going to be affecting the lights. So those are going to be sitting just neutral. So as you can see, I've also desaturated a lot of the reds, the oranges, and the yellows. Any blues that would be like fading into the jersey, those are going to be completely gone. And that's pretty much what we got going on before we set up a color grade. So now let's go into the color grading tab here. So let's go into the highlights. Let's start off here. So mainly what I'm doing is I'm pushing in a little bit of like this yellow tone, mainly just for these highlights, which is going to be in the bottom here and as well in the lights. Now, this was based off of a grade that I had actually created before. So I went off with a preset that I had previously created, but I'm going to show you how I actually created that preset. So let's just start off in the color grading tab and the highlights here. And so let's just push up. So if we look at the bottom here, we're seeing that we're getting like this really nice yellow tone. Now, I personally think that this is super cool. Like this could actually go super well with like a really deep blue tone if we were trying to create a complementary color scheme. So my objective when thinking about, okay, what color do I actually want to push in my highlight wheel is mainly based off of what's already in the scene. So whenever I'm creating a grade, I'm always thinking about, okay, what colors are already in the scene that I can already enhance? And so one of the colors was kind of like this yellowy orange in the gloves. Let's say that that is my dominant color that I want to go with. So that color, that one color is going to rule the rest of the scene. And so most times how we'll usually work it just to make things super easy is I'll push my highlight wheel the same color as my dominant color. So when it comes down to this being the dominant color, okay, I'm going to push warm. So I'm going to push up to that yellow, and that also helps to complement these skin tones here. Okay, so now with the midtones, I pretty much just had it at like 1, saturation 1. I didn't really want too much because if we push in too much, it's going to create a very warm scene overall, and I don't really want to make the whole scene warm. I feel like I'm doing that enough with the highlight wheel, so I'm basically just going to mute that, get rid of that. Now in the shadow wheel, this is where we're going to push some of our blues here. So I'm just going to push in, and this is actually going to balance out part of that highlight color. Now I could push fairly far, so I could go pretty far, and like this for sure might be a little bit too far, but at the same time, if you do like a grade like this, totally your call. But I actually dialed it back just a little bit here. So I went with something like this. And so now we've got this warm color in the highlights, and then I've got this colder tone in the shadows. Now I could push somewhere down in here, which would make sense because we've got our yellow up in here, and then opposite of that is this deep blue. So, you know, I could even go deeper, and then that would be complementary on the color spectrum. But I'm going to push up a little bit more into this green here, and that's actually going to help to give me some of like that red and teal vibe. So kind of like the skin tones are sitting up here in this orange, and then across, that's what I'm going to be pushing into the shadow. So I'm going to leave that here, and then let's go into the tone curve. Now the tone curve, I don't usually use this tool, but mainly to dial in this look very heavily. Like I wanted to pinpoint certain areas and use it very strategically. I don't always use it. Mainly, I'm kind of going with the color grading tab. But for this one, I thought, you know what? Screw it. Let's go have fun, try and push a few different ways. So go into the tone curve tab. And so I'm going to set a point for my highlights, then the midtones, then the shadows. So 3 points here. And so think of those as your color grading wheels. Like this is your highlight grading wheel. This is your midtone grading wheel. This is your shadow wheel. So you basically have to manage all 3 of these across each channel. So we have our blue channel, we have our green channel, and we have our red channel. So we need to manage those colors across each channel. So for this photo here, what I'm going to do is push in, you know what? I think all I'm going to do is dial in a little bit into the shadows. So that's what I did originally, is just manage the shadows. Now, if I wanted to, I could push in some highlight tones, mainly into like those highlights, but we're going to see a lot in the ice here because that's quite a bright highlight. And so if we wanted to push in color just into these lights, we could create a mask, but I'm not going to do it for an overall. So I'm going to go down to the shadow here, and I'm just going to push this a little bit more blue. Okay, now this is going to give us cool tone. All right, so now let's go to the green channel, set up the same, highlights, midtone, shadows, and then let's push this a little bit more red. Okay, now we're getting this really interesting tone here. So we're getting a little bit of this blue / magenta in the shadows, and I personally think this is super interesting. It looks really cool with the skin tones, like it's really helping the skin tones a lot, but then it's also adding a little fringe of blue between, you know, where the highlights are and then the midtones and the shadows. All right, now I'm going to go to the red channel, highlights, midtone, shadows. Now let's see where we want to push this. So we could push this down towards the blue, and that actually gives us more blue in our image. And I actually think that that's pretty cool as well. So I think I'm actually just going to leave it there. So I wish we could turn off each individual tone curve, but we can't. So like if we turn all of this off and then we turn this on, it's adding like this really nice deep blue, but then as well like a hint of magenta. So I think it's pretty cool. This is kind of like this vintage vibe, which is kind of what I was going for. So now, one of the cool things to really make our subject pop. So you might look at the subject here and you might be like, okay, kind of fading into the background, like it doesn't really look that pleasing because you're like, I'm kind of losing the silhouette of the subject. So a cool way and a cool hack to get around that is go to your masks. Now you could, let's just wait for this people to show up here. So let's just highlight people. Okay, so I'm going to click on this because it does a fairly good job. So I'm going to do the entire body here. Okay. So now it doesn't grab the glove and it doesn't grab the helmet. And it is missing a little bit of the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click add, go to brush, come into my subject here, and I'm just going to brush in around the shoulder here just to really emphasize that. Okay. And then I'm just going to highlight the other shoulder here a little bit better. Okay. And for this, I don't really think we're going to need the glove a whole lot, but I'll just do it just for the sake of it, just to show you what we're going to do. Okay. Very bad outline, but that's all right. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to invert this mask. So I'm going to come to these three dots here. I'm going to hit invert. Okay, so now this is where things get pretty cool. So what we can do is watch what happens when I raise up the overall exposure. It's bringing up the background. Now this is obviously too much, but what we could do is bring this down a little bit. Now we could raise up the shadow here, and now we're getting a way better silhouette of our subject, and it doesn't draw attention too much to the background where it looks unrealistic. It still looks relatively realistic, like might bring down some of the blacks just to like make it a little bit more believable. And that looks really cool. Now what we're going to do is take it one step further. So we're going to click on this mask again, go to subtract, and go to linear gradient. Now we're going to drag that up from the middle here, really feather that out. Now pull this down. And so what it's only affecting is just the top part here in behind the subject, because I didn't want the ice. I just wanted this top part just to kind of create a bit of that separation. Now you can see that we have a lot of separation between the subject, the background, and they stand out a lot more. Well, it still doesn't look unrealistic. It just looks like your camera has a lot of dynamic range. Now you might see that we do have a lot of grain and a lot of noise in here. And so one thing you could do, and I'm not going to do it just for the sake of this video, but you could go to denoise, and this is going to bring this up here. So this will create a way cleaner image. Yeah, like you can see it's cleaning up a lot of this noise. I'm not going to do that for this photo just for sake of time. Now, this is one of the looks that we've got going on, but we also want to create a whole nother look, which I think you guys are going to love. So let's go into our masks here, and then let's create another mask. Let's create the brush tool here, come into our subject. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to paint out these colors here, which is this yellow, or technically we could also come in and do color range, and then we could click on this color here, and then we could subtract that. Now it might work okay, might not be awesome, but let's just try it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to also invert this mask. So we're going to invert. Okay, now it does an okay job. Not great in my opinion, but it does okay. So I'm just going to desaturate everything. Okay, now you're seeing that we're getting like a little bit of a hue. Don't worry, we're going to fix that. But what we need to do first is clean up this mask and also get our skin tones back. So what we're going to do is click on this here, and then click subtract, go to brush, come in. And now this is where we could have just painted out before, but we're just going to brush out that area again. Okay, cool. Now we're going to come over to the other glove here. Anything that's yellow or anything that you want to highlight, this is just like a really great way to do that. Okay, perfect. Now I'm also going to do the skin tone because I have the rest of the skin tone for the face, so I'm also going to do the arms. So just make sure to remember to do that if you are going to do something like this. Okay. Now, another thing is going to be the stick, because the stick has a little bit of that color, so I'm just going to highlight that. Okay. Now you can see this is super rough. You can go super dialed in with this if you want. So I'm just going to get the skin tone into some of the hair here. Perfect. Okay. Like I said, very rough. Okay, so we got the colors that we want selected here. Now this looks super cool already. Love this already, but we're going to take it another step further. So this is where things get really cool with the tone curve tab. So what we could do is we could basically just get rid of the red channel. So let's say that we don't want anything to do with the red channel. Now, let's say we want a really white look, like almost a black and white look. What we could do is we could push our shadow up towards the green here. Grab our blue channel here, push that down towards the orange here. I'm going to go back to the green channel here. I'm going to pull that down towards the red. A little bit more. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the red channel. Actually, I am going to pull that a little bit more towards that blue. Reset the highlight here. All right, let's say that we want our highlight down in this ice to be white as well. So what we're gonna do is we're going to remove that orangey yellow hue here. Okay, let's go to our midtones, pull that in as well. Okay, pull that blue. Amazing. Okay. So now we've got this black and white look, but we've got these pops of color, which I think is super cool. Now, what we could do is come into the color mixer tab here, and we could also adjust the skin tone if we felt like we needed to. So like if we wanted to, we could make the skin tone a little bit more towards like that orange. We could bring up the saturation on the gloves a little bit, and even on the face, not too much. Okay. All right, now we've got two completely different looks. So that's kind of how I went through the process of grading this. A lot of it started based off of my presets. Like I'm always scrolling through and saying, okay, does this look good? Does this look good? And so I'm just kind of scrolling through, seeing what would make sense for the shoot. Like I didn't want to just go like completely clean on this photo, like kind of that like black and white where the ice is super white and then you've got like the stands, and for sure you've got some color in the arena, but I want to make this more push. Like I really want to push in a grade. So that's kind of how I went through the process of thinking about how I could grade these shots to make them stand out, to make them pop, and to make these truly look like portfolio pieces. This is something that I'm hoping will be a great testament to the work that I can do for different sports. And so I'm pretty excited just to put this piece alongside my portfolio, along with the rest of the pieces. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. If you want to see more shoots like this, I have a lot more on my page just like this one. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.